One of the terms that I have heard a lot as being a podcaster and being in the podcast space is pod fade. What exactly does that mean? So that's what we're going to cover in today's video. So let's get right to it. Hey y'all, Crystal here today. And like I said in the beginning, we are going to talk about the term pod fade. What does that even mean? Well, in simple terms, this simply means that your podcast, once it gets going, maybe you're super excited, you launch it out into the world, but then something happens and it slowly fades away into an oblivion, into the great abyss, the great unknown. Like sometimes we just don't know what happens to these amazing podcasts. So now that you understand what pod fade is, I want to talk a little bit more about how this happens and a few things that you can do to avoid this happening to your podcast. So the first thing is, how does a pod fade happen? What does this actually look like in real life? Well, maybe you have experienced this in some of the shows that you've listened to. You go to your phone, you know that, my favorite podcast comes out every single Tuesday. But then one Tuesday, you check your phone and the podcast isn't there. And then you think, well, that's strange. Maybe they just skipped a week. Maybe they went on vacation. Maybe something happened and they just weren't able to publish this one time. But then you check again the next Tuesday and it's not there. And then the next week, and then the next week, and then before you know it, a few months have gone by and you forgot about their podcast. You were like, man, someone mentions it. You're like, whatever happened to that one show? And you're like, I know, I totally forgot about it because they stopped publishing on their podcast. This is an example of pod fade. And I see this more often than not happening to podcasters when they don't have a clear strategy. They aren't sure who they're talking to, what they really want to talk about, or maybe they're just confused, right? I mean, I've heard so many people say, I just started my podcast, I started talking, and then I didn't really know where to go from there. I didn't know what I was supposed to talk about every single week. I didn't know what I was supposed to do after I exhausted my initial 10 ideas that I was really excited about. So I just stopped publishing. Or maybe they went from being super consistent to saying, I couldn't publish on Tuesday. So instead I published on Friday. And then the next week I published on Sunday. And then the next week I published on Wednesday. And then I was just kind of all over the place and I felt overwhelmed. And then I just stopped doing it. This is another example of pod fade. This is why this happens. But don't worry if this has happened to you. If you're watching this right now, you're like, oh, guilty. This has happened to my show. There are a few ways that you can come back from this because I actually have a lot of my peers that will come to me and say, I stopped publishing on my podcast, but I want to come back. Don't worry. I just don't know how. I don't know how. So here are 3 options for how you can come back from a pod fade. Number 1, you just start showing up again. Yeah, it really is that simple. You don't need a big announcement, a big explanation, all the backstory, like behind the scenes, this is what was going on in my personal life or my professional life, or this is why I stopped doing it. Nope. You can just start publishing your content again. But the second way to do it, if you're like, that doesn't really work for me, I don't know that I want to just jump back into it, you could make an announcement episode for your podcast. You could call it a bonus episode. You could explain a little bit about why you were gone. If you did have a personal story, if you had something that your audience would understand, or maybe they would be interested in, whatever it is on the back end, you can share that. It doesn't have to be long. I actually have an episode right here that I want you to check out all about bonus content and ways that you can create bonus episodes for your podcast. So it'll give you some ideas. But I want you to just think of it as like just a quick, here's an explanation, and then we're going to jump right back into it. Or maybe you're not ready to quite publish again yet and be on that consistent schedule. So you do an announcement where you say, starting on, you can put the date, whatever date that you're coming back. On this date, we're going to be publishing on a more regular basis. So tune in. Here's what you can expect. Maybe you're pivoting your content. Maybe you're going to have a co-host. Maybe you're changing things up. You could put all of that in this bonus episode. So that's the second way you can come back from a pod fade. The first one, just start publishing again. The second one, make an announcement. And the third option that you have is to start a brand new season. I see this happen a lot. If you want to keep your same podcast name, you want to keep the same podcast content. If you're like, Crystal, I really don't want to start a brand new podcast. I know it faded away, but I'm ready to jump back into it. You can absolutely do that. You can just simply cut off the first episodes as saying, this is all season 1. I said cut off. I don't mean like delete them. I meant simply label those as this is all season 1 and we're starting season 2. This season 2 is going to be about, if you're changing things, put that information in there. Or if you're going to have a different co-host, some of the similar things that we just talked about and making an announcement, you could do that. You could just start a new season. But at the end of the day, I just want you podcasting again. So if you've experienced pod fade, or maybe you're there right now, maybe you're right in the middle of it. You're like, man, I just need a new direction. I need to pivot my podcast. I need to do something different. If you are right in the thick of this, then maybe it's time for a change. Maybe you do need a new season. That is all okay. Or maybe you need a full-blown rebrand. There are options for that too. But at the end of the day, I want more people podcasting. I want you to continue podcasting. I don't want you to just say, I give up, I quit, this is too hard. And if you do find yourself in that situation where you're like, I'm not really sure what to do next with my podcast, then I encourage you to check out one of our courses. We have the Ultimate Podcast Launch Toolkit. This is to help you get your show launched and ready. If you've already launched your podcast, you're like, I don't know that I did it right. Go grab the podcast toolkit because it's super affordable and it can help you relaunch your new podcast or your pod faded podcast. But if you're ready to learn more about starting and launching and marketing your show, then check out Profit Podcasting. This is my digital program that walks you through how to start, launch, and market your podcast. I have so many people come to me and say, is your course right for me? Because I've already launched my show. I don't need to know how it all works. I understand how it all works. I just don't know that I did it right. Yeah, you're a perfect candidate for Profit Podcasting because I walk you through laying the foundation for your podcast so that marketing is easier, creating content is easier, finding guests for your show. If you're going to have an interview show, finding guests is so much easier when you have the foundation of your podcast properly laid. So I'm going to link in the description below, but you can go to crystalprofit.com/course to learn more about Profit Podcasting. But like I said, at the end of the day, I just don't want you giving up on your podcast. If you've experienced pod fade, there is a way to come back. I'm going to link to a podcast episode that I did recently on the Profit Podcast where you can learn more about it and some more behind the scenes of how this experience has happened for some of my peers, but how they've come back from it. But that's all I have for you today. So make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video, subscribe below if you have not already, and check out these other videos right here, all about podcasting and running your online business. And as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere.